A secret Mac is being developed that's in between the power of a Mac Mini and a Mac Pro, a modern Mac desktop for the rest of us who don't want to spend $6,000 on a full-size tower, but want to eke out more performance than what the Mac Mini is capable of. And is this Apple's attempt at taking the G4 Cube off ice and delivering me a computer I've been dreaming about since the early 2000s? Well, I told you this was going to be an exciting year for the Mac, and even I didn't think Apple would be focusing this much on new Mac hardware to the point to develop an entirely new category for the modern Mac lineup. Oh yeah, it's happening, and I thought the wait for Apple's March 8th event was going to be boring, so if you aren't subscribed yet, now's a great time to hit the subscribe button and make sure you don't miss any of this Mac news, and if you're a returning viewer, spam the like button in appreciation for my beautiful, wonderful, maybe 5 pounds heavier face. The nachos from last night did some damage, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, let's break down this rumored Mac Studio, what it's going to be, where it fits in Apple's current lineup, how powerful it will be, and possibly when we might get a glimpse of this future Mac. Now, this reporting comes from 9to5Mac, who claims to have a source inside of Apple that describes the Mac Studio desktop as being based on a Mac Mini computer, but with much more powerful hardware. Currently, there are 2 versions of the Mac Studio under development, one with chips that we are already very, very familiar with, one version being topped out with an M1 Max chip, and then another version that Apple is working on that sounds much more exciting, that is using a special chip that is currently more powerful than the M1 Max chip. This sounds like perhaps the M1 Max Duo or M1 Max Quad chip that I and many others have talked about in other videos, where basically Apple will be taking the existing M1 Max chip, using 2 or 4 of them stitched together to deliver an even more powerful chip that could go up to 40 CPU cores and 128 GPU cores. Now, the code name for this Mac Studio internally is J375, and right now it sounds like this could be one of the rumored Macs in development that may actually take inspiration from one of the coolest desktop designs of all time, the G4 Cube. And in a lot of ways, if this computer turns out to be true, it would really be the spiritual successor to the G4 Cube, which at the time was a smaller version of Apple's Power Mac G4 that sat in between the iMac and Power Mac at that time, and it was aimed more at a market that didn't need the size and all of the capabilities of that Power Mac G4, but still wanted something more capable than the iMac. Although it does beg the question, why is Apple developing a, let's call it mid-size Mac desktop, when a few years ago, we would have called the Mac desktop space dead, and when in the past, the Power Mac G4 Cube was a very short-lived failure, being discontinued in less than a year since it was released. So you might think it's strange that Apple is rumored to be developing an additional desktop into their lineup. If this truly is a separate computer that sits between the Mac Mini, iMac, and then the Mac Pro, it would be the 4th desktop in Apple's lineup, providing us with even more choice for an abundant array of Apple silicon computers. Well, this strategy might actually make sense for today's Apple, where they are in a much different place than when the G4 Cube was released. This was before the iPod, before the iPhone, and Apple's huge growth as a company where they really needed to trim the fat from their lineup. Now Apple is a much larger company, and its users span different use cases and needs in computer choices. The Mac has actually been growing at a pretty good rate since the release of Apple Silicon, and this strategy of releasing a 4th Mac desktop may be Apple's attempt at using its amazing chips to secure even more market share in the desktop space by targeting users who traditionally are in between a Mac Mini or iMac that the very expensive but very capable Mac Pro necessarily wouldn't be for. A Mac Studio that gets close to the power of a Mac Pro, let's say at $2,000, I think would be a very compelling product. Pros, developers, video editors, musicians, and so on might flock to this computer, and it could be a necessary puzzle piece in Apple's lineup, bridging what is now a really big gap between consumer and the top end of the pro-level products. I think a Mac Studio type of device with more ports, an M1 Max Duo chip with up to 20 CPU cores and 64 GPU cores, and a starting price of, let's say, around $2,000 would be a dream, and it would make me consider using that as my full-time Mac computer, especially if it pays homage to the design of that G4 Cube. I really love the design of that computer. There's also other possibilities that the Mac Studio could be the long-rumored half-size Mac Pro we have been hearing about for the past year or so, and it's possible that Apple may give this a new name in the form of Mac Studio instead of Mac Pro, as maybe Apple really hasn't made a suitable replacement yet for the Intel Mac Pro. Think about it. Apple needs to deliver a computer for the Mac Pro that is more powerful and capable in every way than the current Intel version. And while I have no doubt that the chips they are working on are quite capable, there's also more to capability than just CPU and GPU performance. For example, the Mac Pro right now can be configured with up to 1.5 terabytes of RAM, while an M1 Max quad chip theoretically would probably only max out at 256 gigabytes of unified memory. I know you're thinking, who needs 1.5 terabytes of RAM? 256 gigabytes is plenty for anyone. Well, it may sound like a niche use case, and certainly it is to have that much memory, but some people need it, and that's what the Mac Pro is. In its current form, it is a super niche desktop computer that reaches out to the outer ends of what people need to do with a desktop computer. It's more than just for the people watching this video. It's more than just exporting a video as fast as possible. Even though the M1 Max chip can actually beat out some of the Intel Mac Pros in doing that, but there's more to the computing space than just that. You need the capabilities there. There's also expandability with the Intel Mac Pro, which maybe Apple hasn't really figured out a good system for implementing right now with a future Apple Silicon Mac Pro. And that could have the Intel version of that Mac Pro sticking around for a few more years. And that could play into the need for a Mac Studio, a different type of Mac that could fulfill the needs of most users and give you blazing fast Apple Silicon performance, but also it doesn't have to fulfill the role of a Mac Pro and give you all that configurability and expandability, because by having a new name, there are no built-in expectations for it. It would also, I think, still importantly place the Mac Mini as an entry-level product in Apple's lineup, making the product lineup less murky and confusing as to which Mac you should get. Perhaps even more exciting in a way than this Mac Studio alone is apparently it's also being paired with a monitor to go alongside with it, and Apple is rumored to be working on a studio display that would feature a 7K resolution. 9to5Mac reports this is currently codenamed J327, and it's rumored to be running with a built-in A13 chip. And it might also feature a 7K display. It's possible this cinema display could be even bigger than the Pro Display XDR if it keeps the same Retina 218 pixels per inch as the Pro Display XDR. That means it could be shipped on a display as large as 36 inches. Or they could go for a sharper display and keep the same 32-inch display size with a pixel density of 245 pixels per inch. This display would probably be a new high-end display for Apple, sitting near the top of the price range, as Apple is rumored to be working on multiple new displays, with an even cheaper option for a new 27 and 24-inch external monitor. And it's possible Apple may be bringing back this range of displays with the old cinema naming scheme, which would just be an awesome throwback for Mac fans. Personally, I am super excited for this idea of Apple expanding their desktop line with the Mac Studio, and honestly, I'm even more hyped for Apple getting back into the consumer display business, because let me tell you, it's a struggle out there to find a decent display for the Mac right now. I have been looking everywhere. It doesn't exist. Like, Apple is the only one that really does get the sensibilities of what Mac users want with their monitor specs. All right, so when do I think we can expect this rumored Mac Studio to show up and these new Apple displays? Well, I just finished telling you in my last video that I think Apple is ready to show off some sort of surprise at their March 8th event, and it's just a few days away now. And with this last-minute development, maybe this is a product they could show off in a sneak peek and give us even more glimpses into what Apple Silicon is actually capable of. So, hey, it's a wild card, but maybe we see this thing at the March 8th event. But if not, I think WWDC would be the perfect opportunity to show off this new Mac desktop alongside probably a bunch more Macs. As for the display, I think that's a little more up in the air on when it will launch, but I would hope at least to get a sneak preview of that in WWDC this year. even if it isn't really shipping until the end of 2022. Just show us that you're working on it so I don't have to go out and buy another bad PC display. Ugh. All right, but so far, that is everything we know about this new Mac Studio desktop. But more importantly, I want to hear from you in the comments below. Are you excited for this new Mac desktop? Or do you think it's a needless entry into the Mac lineup? As always, if you like the video, show your support by leaving me a like, subscribe for more if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, everyone.